would like to take another 20-30 minutes of your time for this evening for an interesting fireside chat that we are going to have with a couple of industry veterans here, for which I would like to invite on stage Vijay Ganesh from Colliers, Shyam Arumugam, Rightspaces, and Tapan Bhatt from Ascendas Firstspace. Please welcome all the three panelists here. Right, it's an interesting evening. We just looked at how one of the large markets in India, Chennai, the way it has been turning around. I'm sure all of us have been following the government. All of us have been looking at the news that Tamil Nadu has been creating of late. So let's maybe hear from our experts today. My first question goes to Shyam. Shyam, you have spent a long time, in this industry, and one of the veterans that we enjoy interacting with. So there is one question which is coming your way, and we would like to understand, and the participants here would like to know, what is your view about two major trends that are going on right now in the industrial real estate? If you could want to speak a few things about that.
Check. Thank you, Nilesh. Thank you so much for that opening. I think Chennai, we are seeing most of the traction that's happening today. I think with the leasing side is predominantly on the manufacturing and 3PL. I think these are two sectors that are there. If you're looking for interesting insights into what's the trends looking like, I think I'll split it into two. One is a very large macro trend. I think Harish just mentioned about it, and you guys are one of the pioneers in that. I think earlier sustainability being one of the very key things that everybody used to talk about. Any forum you go, any supply chain forum, any development forum, I think everybody used to talk about sustainability. So that used to be our favorite topic. I used to mug up lines on ESG. What is ESG? so that used to be a thing of the past. I think today it has become a norm. I think that is one trend that is catching up. It is not only the developers who are very aware of the ESG trends, as well as the compliance that is kind of hit a large corporate who's coming into Chennai. I think Chennai is kind of now moved on to the next level in terms of the quality of clients also who are coming in and taking up space. I think earlier it used to be a very auto ancillary market. I think anybody who's kind of having a very large presence in Pune used to also have a setup in Chennai because the port is very proximate. Thankfully, we are blessed with 3 ports in the same city. I think the logistics was supporting the game, and the whole ecosystem that was set up around the market that you are very familiar with, Arumugam, I think that kind of propelled the push. So macro level trend and something which is here to stay would be sustainability as one part. I touch upon it briefly now. The other trend that I'm seeing is in terms of the market itself. Like I said, in 2015, 2016, I think a 20 to 30,000 square feet footprint used to be a significant take-up. But today, I think the deals that are happening, I think people are tracking the market of larger than 2 lakh square feet deals. And you still have numbers to talk about, huge velocities that are getting taken up. Still, we have not reached major consumption markets like Delhi and all that, where you operate 5 lakh square feet and all that. But I think the trend from a development perspective is that I think there are larger box sizes that are getting built from developer side. And the take-up is equally good. I think people are also talking about good level of planning. I think infrastructure is also taking about. There's another trend that I want to talk about. I think what we're witnessing in the last 2 to 3 years on the development angle is also that people are coming up with terms like smart warehousing, future-proofing what they want to do for the next 10 years. People are also slowly coming out of the FSI game or the ground coverage game that used to be the driver for coming up with development. I think today people are talking about things like what should be my differentiator. I think which was never the case. I think everybody wanted to be one more player who's giving very good infrastructure. I think 5 years back, if somebody asked me what was the trend, I said flight to quality without blinking an eye. I think today flight to quality has been beaten to death. I think everybody is on the equal plane. Nobody is building something substandard. I think everybody is kind of trying to up the standards. I think that's another third interesting trend that I would say, future ready warehousing. I think these are the three that I've been observing over the last couple of years.
Thank you, Shyam. I think two interesting points I'll pick from what you said. Sustainability, yeah, it was a tick in the box previously. Now it's getting more real. There's a other side to it, which could probably become a large conversation in itself. But what you said is that the ticket size of the size of the boxes average are going up. So that's one interesting insight that I'll pick, and I'll come to you, Vijay, for some insights from you on that. And the second interesting point is the last one, which you've picked. So, Vijay, over to you from this. So, what is your view on the point which Shyam brings in, that the average sizes of the box are going up? What must be driving this, and what are the typical expectations that some of these tenants, that they have when they are trying to up their the kind of storage facilities which they have in this market?
See, if you look at the box sizes are increasing, as Shyam said, it's mostly due to consolidation of spaces. Like companies who have multiple warehouses in different locations, they want to consolidate in one place. And second, they also want capacity building manufacturing site. So the demand has increased from 50,000 to 200,000 square feet boxes, 100,000 square boxes more. So transaction has actually, if you look at few years before, we were talking about 50,000 square feet, what Shyam mentioned. But nowadays we have across the country, not only Chennai, even other cities also, we have 200,000 square feet, even 500,000 square feet transaction happening. So mainly because of consolidation, and I think capacity building for the manufacturing side.
On the other side of the sustainability coin which Shyam brought out, in your experience, how real this drive on ground is? I mean, is it still continuing to be, where the expectation is mostly from the developers? Or do you believe that the tenants have a real drive within their organization to drive more sustainable practices?
See, sustainability has been a topic which we're not talking today. But client wants to have the sustainable goals, but cost is also important factor. They want the cost to be, same, but they want to get that sustainability goals to be achieved. So that is the challenge today.
So at some point of time, sustainability should not be looked at as cost. Right? At some point of time, it will have to be looked at as the way of operating. I wouldn't say value add, I would say it's the way of operating. Right? There was a time when, for example, we used to operate out of godowns and not out of really distribution centers. And the norm changed because the occupiers started realizing that there are ways to unlock that value and efficiency when you start moving to distribution centers rather than operating out of godowns. At some point of time, while the occupiers and developers also start working towards that it is needed, but at some point of time, industry veterans like you and people who really go and fetch things from both the sides, do you see that some of you will be able to add value to those conversations when the tenants are putting up those expectations on the table, but at the same time the ownership of fulfilling those expectations is purely one-sided on the developers? So do you believe this trend could change with at least some of the tenants who have now started realizing that it is more of a joint effort rather than putting everything on the developer side? Do you see some of that inclination coming from the tenants?
Of course, mainly from manufacturing side, clients insist on sustainability practices. So, for example, solar roofing. So, clients are willing to purchase solar power. They're insisting on having solar roofing. So that demand is coming from manufacturing clients more now. And this could continue because we don't see this much happening 3PL side. But on the manufacturing clients, they are definitely wants to achieve the sustainable practices.
Shyam, I see you want to add something on that.
So, like Vijay mentioned, I think it's more prevalent in manufacturing, primarily because I think their governance levels are very high. I think today 3PL is following suit. I think they are kind of watching what's happening. The biggest mind shift is required on two aspects. Like you said, that people should not think that this is a cost. That is the mind shift that is actually required. Like you said, the second thing is like it should go beyond the realm of only a cost-based selling. I think it should be a value-based sell. I think more importantly, we should say that, look, I mean, this is something that somebody is offering for the better or the larger good of the whole society. I think that view has to come in, and it should not be seen at a cost, but it should be seen more as an investment that you're doing for the future. I think that's one thing that is happening. The second thing that is happening is like the solar purchase of power. I think people moving towards more renewable energies. I think that is one trend that's kind of picked up on ground. A lot of 3PL have moved to EV fleets. I think EV charging stations are becoming a norm. I think a lot of park developers, including you, have taken up that initiative of putting up EV charging within the park. I think it's both benefits the end customer as well as it also benefits the greater environment by way of the whole ecosystem kind of supporting that particular mechanism. The other thing that we are seeing is like in case of the circular economy that we are speaking about, I think people are getting very cautious in terms of right from where they pick up that entire space to where their end customer is sitting. One of the things that used to drive that consolidation angle was GST. Maybe post GST, everybody wanted a larger warehouse, no SENVAT, everything abolished, the lines got dimmer. I think people wanted to move towards consumer. But with the kind of dark stores that we are seeing ramp up today in the city, I think people want to be as close to the customer as possible. At the same time, they want to also adhere to their sustainability goals. That's it.
Thank you, Shyam. Tapan, I'll come to you. So, these are some of the trends that we have been seeing even in our conversations. What do we do about our India strategy? From the global perspective, would you like to add something on these two trends, or would you like to bring one more trend which is globally right now extremely prevalent and gaining more significance?
So I think from a sustainability point of view, I think there is two ways to look at it, right? We're not looking at short-term costs. What we should be looking at the long-term benefits that this gives us. And I think that's the view that the client should be taking. And at no point, I think the developers are going to make sustainable parks if it's not profitable to them. And similarly, I don't think we expect any of the tenants to sort of pay for it if it's not beneficial to them as well. It has to be a commercially viable solution for both of them. So I think we are getting there, and I think most of them are planning for a net zero carbon footprint by 2050. We're at the start of it. I think over the next 4 or 5 years, I think this is going to evolve. And we're seeing already a trend in Europe, in Australia, where a lot of the clients are demanding it. I think that's going to happen in India as well. I think we are lagging behind by a few years, but I think we'll catch up soon over a year or two.
So, to add to what the gentleman has brought to the table, sustainability is actually there for real. And the minute we start looking at it as more of an investment, there are ways where you can really unlock efficiencies. There is a white paper which we recently launched in one of the sustainability events being hosted out by Times Now in New Delhi. The white paper is available for download on our LinkedIn handles, and those will be circulated to you for it. It's a good read. You can read, and that will give you a lot of insights into what this gentleman just spoke about, that there are a lot of alternatives for developers and tenants to adopt if they really want to be sustainable in their practices. Thank you, gentlemen, for quick insights on that. My one question to Vijay specifically is that, so there is always a debate in different markets about what is good to have and what is must have with respect to how much of ready space gets consumed, whether you call it ready to move or under construction, and how much of BTS really gets consumed, right? And a lot of it then also has to do with the timing of when the readiness versus when the demand curve really is there in those markets. Would you like to share some specific insights in, let's say, 1 or 2 markets where you are right now operating, what the inclination really is of what kind of sectors? And technically, we'll keep manufacturing out of this conversation because manufacturing most likely will go into customized BTS solution. But other than so all the non-manufacturing consumption-driven sectors, what is the real inclination of the clients towards? Do they want to go and move in really quickly, take a call and go into a ready-to-move facility? Or do they really want to wait, customize the box, talk about sustainability, talk about solution, and then move either an under construction or a BTS facility?
Okay. If you look at the build-to-suit need, the need comes because there is no space available to meet their current requirement or specification, I would say, in the right location. Since you kept the manufacturing away, I would focus on warehousing side. In warehousing side, if you look at mostly the company's end users requirements, when they go for consolidation, they look at their current supply chain and then look at the right location where they want to build their capacity, and that's where actually they go for build to suit space if there is no ready build space available. But 3PLs, what we are saying is they want ready to move options mostly, most of them actually, because of the timeline constraint. But what is driving the factor is basically one, the realignment of the global supply chain. So after COVID, actually the supply chain scenario has changed. If you look at a lot of companies are now focusing on hub, on the last mile delivery and multiple warehouses formats, so smart warehouses. So what they're saying is that they want to consolidate and have one large warehouse. And then they look at going for last mile delivery. So they want to look at build to suit, big boxes. Like I'm talking about cities where we have done this kind of transactions, or in Mumbai we have done something like this big, where we see challenge for getting built to ready built spaces. And there's a demand in cities like Pune also again, where ready supply is not available. And Chennai actually, if you look at a lot of supply is available on ready built side, so absorption gets done. But there are very few build to suit transactions happens in Chennai also. Like this year, there are a couple of transactions happened for build to suit. But if you look at the ratio, it's hardly 10% compared to ready build space.
So you're saying the more inclination is towards either ready or under construction spaces, right, other than the manufacturing sector. That's where more of the inclination in the market looks like.
Yeah.
Tapan, I'll come to you on one point. So Shyam picked up one more interesting point in the 3 points which he brought up. The last point was that the quality, right? So it is so perceived that all the similar looking buildings are actually same. And in our experience, they are actually not same. So the way some of those developments are done versus the development at an institutional player like we will do, there's a huge difference in the way we look at our developments. So Tapan, would you like to share some insight on how do we look at quality compared to some of the other developers who have slightly more flexibility in terms of looking at quality slightly differently than what institutional players would like to do?
So I think from our point of view, our base specs itself are actually better than most of the other guys who are in the market, right? And when you're comparing it to the local players, it's not even in the same league. So where we are coming from is, given experience from guys like Nilesh who come from the 3PL industry, we've got guys from retail industry, we've got guys from the industries manufacturing as well. So we are trying to take the best practices from various people that are actually live with us, from the projects team, somebody who's worked in the nuclear power plants and all of that, right? So we've got those sort of capabilities within the team. Match it with Alok's presence here. Alok was the guy who sort of started Indospace. So we've actually evolved the entire circle from starting at 9-meter height to currently, we are doing 13-meter heights and looking at, 7-ton floor capacity as well. So I think you'll see our base specs would be better than most of the other players in the industry as well. And also what matters is how does the movement within the park happen. So I think we take care of that in a much better way. So you'll see a lot of our parks are being dominated by 3PLs because we actually understand their needs and how the supply chain works for them as well. So,
Shyam, since you picked this point, would you like to add something more that you would like to say on this?
Like you rightly mentioned, I think what is happening today is like a lot of players are there in the market, externally similar, but internally, like you said, I think when you take a base specifications of a developer A versus a developer B, and then you kind of come across that there are so much things that the standards have upped in the grade A players and the people who are institutional grade. I put it that way. So grade A also has its own definitions. I think that's also something which has become a point of debate now. I said to somebody it's grade A. So everybody is claiming grade A these days. So everybody is a grade A player. So we'd say like somebody who's like really conscious about safety, security, and more importantly, I think what is a big differentiator that somebody like you all bring to the table is that I've seen any park, I think there is a very, very responsible acquisition that is made. That is the point number one that I would like to make. I've seen it firsthand when the hard work that is done by the team here, especially Alok, the time that they spent in terms of acquisition, both your phase 1, phase 2. The second goes about how to consciously come up with something that is better all the time. I think I've had the fortunate opportunity to visit most of your parks. Harish will kind of not agree because I've not seen Bangalore. But the thing is like from a perspective of NCR or the park in Pune, I think everywhere you've upped the game. I think that is something that I think the other developers should look and watch and kind of continually improve, be it design or the way that you procure or the way that you kind of adapt to the sustainability. One interesting thing I still remember in Delhi that you had kind of tied up with a local hospital, make a difference to the community at large. I think people also forget that it's also the impact that you make on the environment. It is not only about you going, taking some land, building some infrastructure, getting some client, leasing it out. I think there's a lot more social responsibility angle also that large developers brings into the play. I think it is now becoming more like I build it and we kind of lease it, but then the quality of clients that you have. I mean, when we see the presentation, that speaks volume of the kind of clear differentiation that is between a player like you all and another player. So I think it speaks for itself. I think that's the point that you're making. Continual improvement.
So Shyam, just to add to what you were saying, one thing that I forgot to mention is design thinking. I think our firm actually takes that very seriously as well. So if you'll actually think, our largest team in the projects team is also our design team, which is a strong 7-8 member core member team, which actually constantly thinks about improving the way in which we can service our clients as well. So that's something that I think is very important to highlight as well.
Absolutely. I think also the other thing that we had seen, I mean, personally I've experienced with your park is like when you launched the first Chennai park, I think we had spent a lot of days and nights with the team to kind of lease out the first space. I think the continual updates that we get, I think in terms of the reporting angle, that's one thing that I always keep commenting that that's the kind of things that anybody who is looking at from a stakeholder perspective. So stakeholder management also matters in these kind of environments, like a proper reporting in terms of how you are kind of actually doing it, and also communicating that to different stakeholders. Like we come in from a marketing angle of the park, but there is also somebody who is coming from the design angle who has to communicate to the end customer that this is what you're doing. And maybe I think because you have diverse resources into your kitty, I think people who have been in the industry, who have been consumers of space, who are continually giving, I think that's become a big cutting edge for Ascendas, so to speak.
Thank you, Shyam. So one key takeaway for all of us, at least which I pick here, is that India doesn't have, like developed nations, a code to say which building has what kind of a structural rating or an operational or efficiency rating, and hence similar looking buildings may still not be same, right? So that's one thing which in our daily jobs is something that we all encounter, and it sometimes gets very difficult to differentiate this on paper or even in pictures to a client. It's only some of the credibility which an institutional developer like we bring on the table, and some of the support which we can get from channel partners like you, where we can really go and explain the tenant that there indeed is a lot of difference in the way some of these developments are done vis-a-vis what those could be potentially be done. That's a good conversation. Vijay, one question which then this gets linked is that there are a lot of challenges you must be facing. There are developers on one side, and there are certain expectations because there is a global standard, there is compliance, there is sustainability. So there are a lot of things that the institutional players really have to do, and then there are ever demanding tenants and clients that you really deal with. A large part of your deal, as you said, about 80-90% inclination of the clients other than manufacturing is towards ready to move, which means you will be compelled to deal with different categories and different types of developers. What is that one challenge which you find it common across, which you believe could be probably looked at differently if you were to go and do a deal differently?
So one challenge is basically setting up the right expectation to the client. In fact, because the client comes to us when we talk about institutional player is offering this park and another developer is offering this park, they look at what is it you are giving extra for that, in terms of quality, or what they ask us to define actually. And because while it's very, very competitive in terms of the commercials, they look at the best price, but they want the best quality. Same. So that's something we always try to understand, that why you should go to a grade A park which has got best quality, and you don't mind paying that little bit more, but then you get better ecosystem, better building for your long-term plans. So that's something which we have been facing challenge, because we have been working in certain markets where we have to work with a lot of local developers. because certain markets in Bhiwandi, for example, a lot of local developers. Similarly, in Pune has a lot of local developers who are strong. So when we interact with them, actually, they're able to give some competitive pricing because of the land price are actually, they bought land long back. But developers who are grade A who have come now and bought land, they're not able to match the price. Same time, but they're trying to compete quality-wise, right? But the challenge is that how do we set the expectation, make the client understand in terms of the why you have to go to institutional player backed by a fund and should take space there and paying a little bit more helps them in long term.
Since we are talking about land, Tapan, I'd like to come to you on this because Ascendas Firstspace is clocking now close to about 1,000 acres of land acquisition that we have done in this country. It's a significant acquisition we have done. What do you believe helped us come reach to this point to acquire close to about 1,000 acres, and we are looking at maybe 400, 500 acres more in the coming months? What would have really, one or two things which would have really helped us reach where we were?
So if you ask me, looking at the growth that India has had, we could have done a whole lot more. But in my opinion, we've been very, very sane in underwriting our lands as well. And I think our diligence has been very, very good that ways as well. So that's why we want to be absolutely sure when we are giving a product to our investors or tenants, potential tenants, it is up to the mark. And that's why I think, could we have gotten more lands? Could we pay more? But I don't think we're going to go and do transactions that don't make sense. So for us, 1,000 acres, great. I think we can do a whole lot more over the next 4-5 years. I think we're going to go quadruple or even quintuple our size. Currently, the way I see is our 6 cities are going to be our core focus cities. And plus, I think there are opportunities that are coming in tier 2 cities. So we'll continue to explore those wherever the clients or demands. You might laugh at this, but we like to say, "Main hoon na." We'll be there for you to sort of take your expansions into various other cities as well. But we won't go until and unless it makes sense from a land and a tenant perspective as well.
Tapan, you picked a point on diligence, so then I have a question to Shyam. So we have seen in our experience of past couple of decades that there are a lot of transactions which could not cross a line or could not materialize even after commercially getting included, primarily because there were some of the other compliance or the diligence bottlenecks on the land that would have come. How do you see that changing, and what is the wealth of knowledge which now the tenants are sitting on to really make a call with respect to typically when they sign a BTS kind of a transaction, which is a large expansion which they would look at, must be very strategic in their own organization. How differently are they looking at now on those transactions, and what is the risk that they perceive in their mind on an institutional versus a non-institutional player with respect to diligences of the land?
Very pertinent question, Tapan. So, like Tapan mentioned earlier, there could have been a lot of people, including me, at some point of time, I used to tell Alok, why are you not buying more land? Then he'll say tell me which land I've not seen. So the challenge will be there are a lot of various geographies. Some of them have title that you can trace, title that you can actually kind of say which are worthy of a fund diligence. But there are a lot of title that is in lay of land in multiple geographies, because we've had the opportunity to work across multiple cities as well. I think there are certain places, like for example, some of the tasks that you accomplished in Bangalore, I was quite surprised that you're picking up more land in Bangalore. Bangalore is very difficult to aggregate. I think the challenges like aggregated large land parcels are very difficult to get. Second, when somebody comes with a large requirement, where the mind shift has happened is earlier, the people who are taking the call, like for example, we've worked with Amazon and Flipkart in the past, and they kind of take diligence very seriously as though they own the park. And it is not a developer's risk that somebody is taking, because I think there is too much at stake if you are doing a large consolidation. Tomorrow, even a small stoppage, like for manufacturing, it's more of line stoppage, becomes a big red flag. But in terms of a delivery stoppage, becomes the biggest red flag today for any e-commerce player. I mean, he can't compromise for a single day delay if something should happen to the property if you have not done the diligence properly. I think that's a great differentiator from a grade A angle and from an institutionalized player. I think it is always better to do quality than quantity. I think that's the view I take on this subject.
So we have discussed about challenges, opportunities, some of the trends. I'll like to pose a last question to both Vijay, to you and Shyam. Other than Chennai, there are other markets in the southern part of India which are also significantly growing. Which are those other 2 or 3 large markets where you see that the velocity will, kind of pick up in the next couple of years, and primarily because of which sectors? If you have some insights and would you like to share that with us.
If you look at Tamil Nadu, Hosur is very active currently. Hosur market is picking up well, a lot of demand, and but only challenge is land price already skyrocketing that market now. And apart from that, Coimbatore is another city, then Trichy, Madurai, and government is promoting down south Tuticorin, currently Tuticorin, Virudunagar for textile park, and Tuticorin they are promoting. But what we see is that for a great developer to go there today, we don't see so much of potential, but definitely city like Hosur or Coimbatore, maybe Madurai, Trichy is something which you can look at.
Shyam, anything from you?
So I think pan-India, I think there are favorites, which the 6-city strategy that everybody follows. So from any IPC standpoint, you see there are 8 cities that get reported, tracked on a regular basis. So I think those are the top 8 cities that continue to dominate. I think Tier 2 cities has been like, everybody's taken it with a pinch of salt. We've all seen how everybody rushed to Lucknow, what happened there. There were inquiries at some point of time for Jammu, because that was a new land that was kind of opening up and people wanted to be there and set up. Same thing with Coimbatore. I think large developers went set up there, being a first mover. But I agree with Vijay on Hosur. I think we have got a lot of inquiries off late on Hosur. The thing that will be driving Hosur is more like it's a proximity to Bangalore. At the same time, proximity to the EV market as well. I think a lot of EV action is happening in Hosur, like Ather, Ola already there. I think establishing significant presence. I think India is also trying to cash in on the China Plus One. I think no debate goes without China Plus One. I think they are also trying to see with though what's happening with Tata. I think the expansion that we are going to witness, the semiconductor space, the EV space, and the nearness and proximity to a market like Bangalore. I think Hosur is currently being looked at. But like Vijay mentioned, we've been tracking the market closely. Land pricing again becomes a challenge. That's not a market where historically prices have been set at a high benchmark. So marketing becomes a challenge again. I think
better rental.
Yeah, better rental. so I think that's been the key. Like Tapan rightly mentioned, I think doesn't make sense to do business where the commercials doesn't make sense, both for you and for the client. I think it works both ways. But I think there are opportunistic markets that are definitely there. There are people who are like looking at, from a Tamil Nadu perspective, you look at very clear divide. There's a category A, category B, category C. And category A does not get most of the incentives. Category B is where people are kind of looking at action now. There are strategic corridors between Chennai and Bangalore. I think Ranipet is one that people are looking at right now because of Jaguar Land Rover. I think they are coming up. There is only so much that the government can do in this whole entire exercise. I think that's where there is an opportunity to cash in. I think wherever there are large investments that are happening, I think ancillary parks is a big opportunity. I think everybody is looking at that very seriously. Chennai has itself expanded. I think earlier it used to be stuck at Sriperumbudur and Arumugam. These are the 2 markets. Recently, over the last 6 months, we've seen Sungwar Chatram emerge from nowhere. We are also seeing people push the boundaries a little bit more towards Walajabad from Oragadam. So Oragadam used to be very concentrated amongst your park and the other peers. But today, I think people are willing to look at Uthukadu and all the other locations. Like all of these, people would be able to relate to these markets. Infrastructure initiatives like the outer ring road has kind of pushed the boundaries to North Chennai. I think a lot of institutional players were not looking at. DP World has made a large acquisition there. So I think that's pushing the boundaries from a Chennai perspective. I think there's lots that's coming your way. Nilesh.
Last question to you, Tapan. So we've heard about expansion in some other markets here in South. So we have been in country for more than 30 years, investing consistently across multiple real estate assets. What is the approach going ahead, and what are the upcoming markets that could get covered in the investment strategy for the market to know?
From the warehousing perspective, so, of course, Chennai, Bangalore remain a core focus for us. we're adding, so we already have 2 parks in Bombay, we're adding 2 more over there. We've got 2 parks in Pune, we're adding 2 more. And Calcutta will again be a market that we'll sort of focus on. NCR, Vijay and I were talking about just earlier today, and he mentioned there was one client requirement that came and there were 42 proposals that got submitted for it. So I think NCR is a little slower, but I think that's a core focus because that's the largest sort of market over there. So I think if we find good opportunistic buys over there, we will sort of do it. And as we see tier 2 cities like a Coimbatore, like a Lucknow, like a Guwahati, or a Jaipur for that matter, or an Ahmedabad, is something that always remains interesting. So we keep exploring, but we'll see how that goes. And find me a good land in Hyderabad, affordable one.
So specific to South, both Vijay and Shyam did mention a lot about Hosur. So should the market expect that we will foray into Hosur sometime soon?
Fingers crossed. We are, as many other players, we are looking at opportunities there. If something sort of fructifies soon enough, then we'll sort of, I think, our team will sort of get in touch, I think.
Thank you, Tapan. Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, Shyam. I'd like to go back to our audience, and if there are any questions which you would like to ask the panelists, you may please go ahead. Any questions anybody would like to ask?
Perfect. Let's do it over drinks.
Thank you so much, and thank you for spending this time with us. Thank you, all of you, for a wonderful session.
Thank you.
Thank you.